Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about toxic and negative people and why we tend to attract these people into our lives. So a lot of this stems from childhood, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But basically what happens is when we have an abusive childhood and there's some real deep things that go on, then we tend to have a relationship later on in life, romantic relationships, that all of our trauma tends to be carried into our romantic relationships, and we tend to keep attracting really toxic people who don't tend to have our best interest, who tend to treat us very badly, and we either let them do it or we kind of keep getting into these cycles with all these different people with the same energy but different face, basically. And we kind of think, well, it'll be different next time, it's because of that person doing that and that person doing that. But at the end of the day, we are choosing these people. Like, you are choosing this person, whether it be from trauma or by choice, because at the end of the day, when we're in trauma, we don't always feel like we've got a choice. So basically that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get started. So we're going to be starting off with why this happens. So why this happens is we tend to be in family dynamics that basically are very, very toxic. We have parents that basically treat us either very obviously bad or very subtly bad, and we can have parents that basically treat us like we can't have boundaries. So what happens is when we get treated like we can't have boundaries, and then we have to people please, or we have to kind of we struggle to get close to our family members because they either treat us really badly or there's abuse or something like that, then we tend to attract relationships from this point of view. And as a child, you are carrying around all that stuff, and you're not meant to be the adult. As a child, you're meant to be taken care of, but our parents tend to, they are humans as well, and they have their own issues. And a lot of the time is if they weren't parented properly, then they carry that down to their children. So what happens is, as a child, we keep that with us, our inner child, and our inner child has a lot of trauma. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to grab a caregiver as quickly as possible. So that can look like either a boyfriend, a girlfriend, and partner, whatever it looks like. And then we tend to put all that stuff that we haven't basically dealt with onto our partner, because it's an unconscious thing. So say if you were very, very badly, I'm going to say it, physically abused, you most likely are going to be somebody who doesn't like to be touched. So you could attract somebody who's very touchy-feely, and then it's basically you trying to repair this relationship that you had with that parent who very much badly abused you. So basically what we're looking into is how to stop this cycle, how to stop attracting these people, and how to basically repair and get ourselves more comfortable with ourselves. So let's start off with that. So one of the reasons why you most likely have attracted these people, and I will look into how to stop it as well, but we're going to look into what happens. So one of the reasons is you are a fixer. You like to fix people. You tend to have a tendency to really overly care for people, which overly caring means basically, in my eyes, that if you're caring for somebody, they're receiving it, but they're not giving that love back to you, which should be unconditional anyway. But basically, if you are somebody who had to overgive as a child, if you had to care for your parent, if you were the responsible one, if you were the scapegoat, where basically you had to be the golden child and everything, you had to be perfect, and while everything was chaotic, you had to be the one to settle it. You could be the person who's also a natural carer. You could be an empath or a rainbow child or any of those things, and your natural instinct is to be very unconditional. So the reason why we attract people into our lives that are toxic is because we are trying to fix something from childhood. So if you ever always felt like, well, my parent isn't going to be there for me only when I care for them, then that's what you're going to carry into your relationships. You end up attracting people who need fixing. So basically you end up with these people who are very emotionally unconscious of their stuff, and basically you attract these people who you want to try and fix and adjust. But we can't fix and adjust people, because if people wanted to change, then they would, and they will at the end of the day. If they want to change, then they will. But if they don't, we have to learn to walk away from it. Either accept it and kind of deal with it, or basically just walk away. And walking away tends to be the best idea, which sometimes it can be hard, but it's always the best thing to do. So number 2 is, like I said before, is basically you're trying to repair a relationship from childhood. So as an example, you could have a very immature parent, a parent who acts like a child. So you say your dad was very unaware of his emotions. He could have been somebody who was very teasing and very childish and never took anything seriously. You then have that obviously as you know, a repeating cycle in your head because you've grown up with it. You think, that's what men are like. So then you attract men who are exactly like that. We tend to attract our parents in our romantic partners, as hard as it is. Once we heal and once we kind of really look at what is toxic in those parents, and then we attract that toxic trait in our partners, once we actually realize that we keep doing this and that's like my dad, that's like my mum, then we can actually reel it back and think, I don't want to attract that anymore. That's hurting me. This is painful. You're not meant to hold on to everyone's crap. It's not your job. So if someone is treating you badly, you got to realize like that is not good for me, and you got to really get comfortable with monitoring and engaging in your own emotions and how you feel. You are your top priority, and even if people have shown you that you're not, you are 100% worthy of a romantic relationship where someone treats you well. So we have number 3, which I actually wrote down because I always forget how to explain it like in a sentence. So I said, number 3 is you had to change yourself and you couldn't have boundaries. It created distance between you and your emotions, and then you now see people from an emotionally distant place. If you had a parent who was very emotionally distant, somebody who's very uninterested in being unconditional to you, who when you cried, they either ignored you, shouted at you, told you were doing something wrong, then in your mind as a child, basically you are here on this planet to live and to, you know, live as long as possible. So your innate ability to be here on this planet is to be in survival. So your survival is based on how your parents parented you. So if these people in childhood, if they can show you what an emotional mirror was like, and say you were crying and they'd be like, you know, get out my way, or, you know, they used to push you down, or they used to ignore you, that's not normal behavior. That is not mirroring a child when they're upset, because a child needs to know that everything's going to be okay because they haven't regulated their emotions. They're a child. They're meant to be a child. So say if you were somebody who had to basically ignore all your feelings, that basically told yourself inside your head, I am not lovable. I am not loved unless I am faking who I am, if I'm pretending who I am, if I'm shrinking myself. And then when you shrink yourself, you then grow up like this, closed. So then basically you attract people from this closed place, because if you were to be closed and you met someone open like this, it would freak you out. You can't meet someone from the different place than you're at, because if you do, they may trigger you because you're not ready to open up. So the best thing for you to do is, if you have attracted people who are very emotionally immature, who are very toxic, who aren't responsible for their emotions, then most likely you had a parent or a caregiver or somebody around you who treated you like that and made you realize that I'm not good enough, I have to act from this place. Learning to have boundaries is so super important. Like if you were taught I have to be something different to be loved, then that is somebody who struggles with boundaries. Most likely you have people pleasing tendencies, and you have attracted people who have treated you in such a way that's made you feel like you're not good enough, and you have to basically fake your entire personality to be loved. So that's the tea. That's something to think about. Once I got that, I was like, oh my God. Because the thing is, I will say, I am somebody who's very emotional. I'm very sensitive. I'm very empathic. So I always thought, why the F do I keep attracting these people who are so closed and so toxic and won't ever acknowledge stuff? Like I'd tell them something and they completely just ignore what I was saying, and they bring it onto me and make it my fault. What happened is I attracted this person who is a lot like one of my family members, and why I did that was because I used to be so scared of being open and being myself, because I never was able to feel like myself when I was younger. I never felt like I could be free and happy and cry about things and be loud. Like I was never allowed to do that. I was never allowed to have choice. I had to do exactly what I was told and nothing less. So if you're taught like that as a child, you grow up thinking you're never good enough. These things are lies. They are basically there to stop the teacher or the carer or whoever it is feeling something. So if you're crying and that parent can't deal with crying, they're going to shut you down. It's nothing to do with you. It's to do with their parenting and what they have coped with. And yes, of course they're human beings and they all have their stuff, but at the end of the day, if they still, and especially if you approach them later on in life and they can't even apologize, most likely they won't apologize because otherwise they wouldn't be doing it in the first place. You can obviously talk to these people and say, you know, look, this really hurt me, blah, blah, blah. If they shrug it off, this person most likely has narcissistic tendencies. You back the fuck away, because they are really in their patterns and they are not willing to change, especially as people get older. If they don't do the therapy or they don't do the emotional work to really go there with their hearts, it's not worth it. It really is not worth it. So that's also another reason why we have neglect and shame, especially if you were somebody who had strong emotions and you were neglected as a child. If you were somebody who you wanted to spend time with your parent but they were always busy, or they basically didn't want to spend time with you because maybe they didn't want to play, maybe they were too serious, maybe they were too stuck up with their own stuff, they were too stuffed up with all their stuff, then it's really hard for them to express how they feel with you. So basically your job is to really go there with your heart, and when you're feeling stuff is to listen to yourself. That is so important. And when you can listen to yourself, it gives you back the control that you so badly wanted as a child, and also the attention. A lot of the time is children who need attention and didn't get it then grow up as adults who go towards people who are very, very, very avoidantly attached. So you have the anxiously attached and you have the avoidant attached, and the anxious attached is somebody who's clawing at the relationship trying to get it back, and the avoidant is too overwhelmed by the emotions that they want to pull away. So you tend to have this push and pull dynamic. So basically when you start to really listen to your emotions, as scary as they are, sitting with them can really give you the control back that you are so desperately needing from childhood. And same with your attention. If you feel like you can't get attention from somebody, pull away from them and really sit with what you're feeling. Why can't you feel like you can't get attention from them? Well, most likely you're clawing at this person who's so emotionally avoidant that you're never going to get anything from them anyway. So it's better to pull back and really focus on what you can do in that moment, not what you can't do. Is the reason why you keep attracting toxic people is you've never felt good enough. And like I say, this is stemming from childhood. I'm going to keep saying that. But the reason why we don't feel good enough is because we've been shown that. That's simple. It's that simple. You've been shown that by probably a lot of people. And it's not because you're not good enough. It's because those people see something within you and they want it. That is all. And most likely you are either a scapegoat, which is somebody who is basically the person to be very different from the family. You could also be somebody who is the one who's really rebellious. You know, if you're different in any way, that tribe of family members will cast you out in some certain way, and it doesn't have to be physically shoving you out the door. It could be neglecting you, abandoning you, making you feel rubbish. You are not any of those things, my love. You are not any of those things, and you should never, ever, ever speak to yourself and say you're not good enough. And if you ever feel like you're not good enough, we're going to look into some things that can help you feel better. Moving on. This is a very, very good one. Okay, so also write this one down as well. So number 5, okay. You were taught that your worth depends on other people seeing your worth, so you become of value to them and not of you. So basically what this means is you have been told that you're never good enough. So you most likely were compared to when you were younger. You're not like your sister, you're not like your brother, you're too much like your dad, you're too much like your mum. Oh well, that your sister's got better grades than you, your sister's prettier than you, you have to hug that parent when they come in the door. Like all these things you get told that you have to do. So basically you get told that their needs are much more important than yours. So say if you get told that you have to hug a family member and you don't want to hug them, but you have to do it because your parent told you to, and if you say no, then they get angry, and then your safety is out the window basically. So you have to link to your family members. You have to be aware of how your family members are feeling, because you're going to get chucked out the door. That's your fear. It's your safety mechanism. So essentially you have to connect with these family members, even if it's toxic, for your own safety, for your survival. It's not fair, but it's true. And obviously this is a lot to do with society and how we've been brought up. It's not a natural thing. Like this does happen in tribes, I feel, but not to this extent. A lot of the time is, I feel like and now we're going to create tribes that are a lot more Aquarian and hopefully a lot more balanced and unconditional. But basically what you're doing is you want to make sure that you are not putting your focus on other people and how they see your worth, okay? You want to pull back as much as possible. One thing that really helped me is just to be in my cave, be in my bubble as much as possible. Yes, you got to work, you got to do these things, but just minimize your interaction with people, especially when you're healing a lot. If your worth has always been dependent on how other people see you, view you, how like pretty you are, how much worth you have, how much money you have, you always compared yourself to other people. You always think, well, they have a partner, why don't I? And then you end up getting jealous, which is a normal emotion and should never be shamed. These things are very normal, but a lot of the time it does stem from parents. It stems from people who we thought we could trust, but we can't, because those people are also wounded. Listening to ourselves now and then healing this now is going to be so damn important, because we can teach this to our children And we can teach this to kids that we come across, you know, say if you work with kids or you have nieces, nephews, you know, stepsons, stepdaughters, doesn't have to be biological, but we can teach this to anyone around us. And it can be adults, it can be animals, just being kind to any being that comes across us because we've been kind to ourselves. That is the most important thing. So things that can help you. So things that can help you is things that have worked for me, and I will suggest these in a lot of videos. You're probably going to get sick of me saying this. One thing that I really love to do is to back the fuck away. Back away from anything, back away from hanging out with certain people, back away from environments, social media, TV, anything that's overstimulating, shutting the blinds, being in the dark a lot more, all going out in nature, like just having days where you haven't got a freaking clue what you're going to do. Okay, on your days off, spend it like you have no idea what you want to do. Don't worry about that washing you want to leave. Don't worry about that dishwasher. It will be fine. Okay, you can leave it a few more hours. Put yourself first. Stop making things to a category. Okay, so pull away as much as possible, as much as you can. Of course, you do the important stuff, but I want you to prioritize your health. And yes, it's going to be harder for those who have kids and things like that. Yes, of course, I totally understand that. Yes, it is more difficult. But you can teach your kid these things too. You can say, Mummy just needs some time for herself right now. And also you can be with your child and do this as well. You can meditate with your child. You can sit with them and play with them, but you would do like maybe calmer play where you were like drawing or something. And you can do this with your friends. Maybe your friends want to hang out, they want to go clubbing, they want to go to the club. You can tell them they've been to the club, trying to be cool. They want to go to the club, they want to get pissed, you know, they want to have alcohol, whatever. You know, they want to get drunk, whatever it is. And you don't want to do that? Great, don't do it. It's that easy. You got to be okay with putting your emotions first. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. This is about you, and this is what you got to start repairing, is putting things, implementing things for yourself that will help you. So another thing is do inner child work. When you are feeling upset, asking, how are you feeling today? One thing that I've been really working on, one thing that actually I really struggle with is, well, I'm working with it. I don't struggle with it. I'm working with it. Okay, I'm putting it out there that I'm working with it. Is basically when you feel something, you don't always know you're feeling it, especially if you're used to shoving it down. So one thing that I could feel, like say if I'm feeling a little bit jealous of somebody, which is, jealousy is a perfectly normal emotion, no shame in that. All emotions are sacred. So jealousy is a good indicator of saying, maybe I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard by myself, maybe there's something that I want that somebody else has. And this is a really good indicator to ask, why am I feeling like that? So I'll put my hands on my heart and I'll say, how are you feeling? Why are you feeling like that? Is there anything you want to tell me? Is there anything you need? And I'll say any of those phrases. And a lot of the time is my inner child will pop up and I'll start talking like a child. And it'll normally be like, I just feel really sad, or I don't feel like I fit in, or I don't feel worthy. And I'll be like, why don't you feel worthy? What's going on? It's basically like you want to talk to a child and just keep going there. And obviously it's better to do this when there's no one in the house or you have your own room. You can do it like in the mirror. You can do it recording yourself. You can just talk to yourself out loud. It's so healing, and I do this everywhere I go now. So a lot of the time is I probably look like I'm talking to someone. It's me, bitch, I'm talking to me. And that's the most important thing, is you want to put yourself first. It's this thing about like getting rid of this stigma of putting yourself first. Like, we need to become healthier, we need to become more comfortable with being unconditional to ourselves, because if we're not going to do it, who is? Who is going to do it? Our parents are not there to be our saviours. They're not God. They're not there for us to get on our hands and our knees and praise them. No, they have their flaws. They're just human beings. So if they have something that you know you don't like and you don't want to be around them, great. Have some boundaries there. It's basically just clearing out things, having strong boundaries, and dealing with what comes afterwards, because a lot of the time boundaries can be very, very difficult, especially if it's to do with our parents, because we're taught that parents are God, basically. So I feel like the last thing I just want to say to kind of wrap the whole thing up is, this isn't going to last forever, okay? And you do have a choice. And also another thing is when you are around people who treat you badly, it's a process, my love. You are not meant to just exit that relationship like no tomorrow. You're most likely in it because it's your safety. Okay, and you will get a relationship who with someone who does treat you well. It just takes time. You're not meant to have it like that, because if you haven't had that before, how the F are you going to know what it looks like? You want to become that healthy person within yourself, so you can spot a healthy person, you can go, that's the one, that's my man, that's my woman. You know, you'll find them when you see them, and you're not going to be instantly attracted to them a lot of the time. A lot of the time is you're probably just going to be like, they're nice. It's because of your trauma. When you have trauma and you basically find someone who looks like your mum or looks like your dad, very like in the back of your monkey brain here, is basically it's to survive. You're thinking, oh, a mum that I can be around, oh, a dad that I can be around, who can repair the things that I couldn't get from them as a child. You know, say you didn't get a lot of physical touch, most likely you're going to attract someone who doesn't like physical touch because you're trying to claw at them, trying to repeat that pattern. So the last thing I want to say is you are doing amazing. If you don't feel like you're doing good, you actually are. Like, actually clicking on this video is a really big thing, so just like, well done. This is a really big thing to work on, and one thing that I'm learning to do is just to realize every day is friggin' different, and you will need to sleep a lot. You will need to eat more, and you probably need to drink more, or it'll be the opposite, is you don't want to eat, you don't want to drink. You've got to be really kind to yourself. This is a healing process, and at the end of the day, like for me, I still have a few people in my life who I'm not super keen on, but at the end of the day, it's still a process. You've got to choose, where do I see myself in this connection? What can I get out of it? Because at the end of the day, you can still be around toxic people or people who have narcissistic tendencies and still get something out of it. You've got to choose, is this worth it? What is worth my time? What is worth it for me? Not for them, for me. Because that is the most important thing. And I can guarantee you that you're going to attract people who value you. Because when you show people how to treat you, treating you well, speaking kindly to yourself, having boundaries, saying no, no one will step on you anymore. No one will treat you like a friggin' rug that they can just wipe their feet on and walk off. The only reason why we attract this is because we let them in. From our unconscious place, but we do let them in. So we've got to put it back to us first. And you can think like, oh, you know, but what if I keep attracting it? Well, at the end of the day, if you keep attracting it, then you can try again. You can keep trying. There's no rules. There's no rules. And also we're doing it for safety. So just be really kind to yourself. We're in a very toxic society right now, and it's hard. So just be really good to yourself and talk about it with people. Don't be afraid of it. Like, if people judge you, then they're not the right people to be around. Like, judgmental, criticizing people need to go home. That is your video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like these types of videos, then please give me a little thumbs up or a big thumbs up, whatever you fancy, and give me a comment if you'd like to, if there's any topics that you'd like. I feel intuitively like I need to ask some topics, so if there's any topics you want me to look into, then please let me know, and I'll speak to you very soon, my loves. Bye.